Welcome, everybody, to another fantasy chat. Today, I have on the wonderful Sarah Nakamura, Wheel of Time legend and consultant for the Amazon show coming down the road. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm so good. This has been such a long time coming, and I'm so glad that we finally have the opportunity to sit down and chat.
Me
It's great,
too. We met once before at JordanCon, for
right?
full disclosure, and that was one of the most fun weekends I've had in my adult life. Total blast. Very
Oh
sad it's
yeah.
not happening this year, but it's definitely, if you're a Wheel of Time fan, check it out.
Oh, totally. You must go. The sense of community there is so incredibly strong. And even if you're a solo fan, have no fear. They've got speed friending on the first day so that you can meet a bunch of people and just feel comfortable immediately. And just in general, there's this sense of being embraced.
Yeah.
So, highly, highly recommend.
Well, I really appreciate you being willing to come on today and talk about the show coming down the road, how you got involved, because I know so many people want to know, you have this dream job. You are sitting on the front lines of the Wheel of Time show, and the story of how you got there has yet to be fully revealed. So could we go ahead and maybe could you walk us along that journey?
Yeah, no, this is something that I've really wanted to discuss and at least share for quite a while now. It was not an accident that I fell into this position. I actively pursued a job on this show for probably 18 years. And I know that that sounds a bit nuts. Lord of the Rings came out. And as soon as Lord of the Rings came out, it became very apparent in my mind, at least, that one day a digital media form of the Wheel of Time might happen. I was already spending so much time within the world inside of my head that it just became so exciting to me that maybe I could spend time in an actual world if somebody built it out. And so that's kind of where things started for me, or the seed of the idea got planted. And within 3 months, I'd actually picked up my life and moved to Los Angeles. To pursue a career in special effects and makeup artistry and creature making. So that's where it all began. And then as years went on, I paid attention to the dailies with Variety, Newsweek, as time went on, Deadline. And I noticed one day that the rights had been sold for the Wheel of Time. So then it was a ticking clock. I knew that this dream was going to become a reality for all of us fans.
Mhm.
We were going to see something happen, but that was even 13 years ago. So then beyond that, it just became a waiting game of just being diligent and understanding what was going on with the process. I'm still working behind the scenes, had a couple of jobs in the film industry just to get my feet wet and hopefully create a name for myself. And from there, I went to my first JordanCon and actually ran into the rights owners. And at that point, the rights owners, over a couple of years, had gathered a core group of fans that were really passionate about seeing this come to screen. Eventually, the time came where Rafe said, hey, it would be really great to have somebody that knows the series inside and out that I can just talk to. And just by nature of me being in Los Angeles, it was just an easy call to make to introduce us, which is what happened. I got introduced to Rafe on the same day that he actually pitched the show to Amazon. And we met very briefly for about 20 minutes. And he was like, okay, I've got to go do this now, which was, in hindsight, really, really cool to be a part of that experience. And then from there, I think he called me within 24 hours to say, hey, I really want to chat with you some more. I've never really had an opportunity to sit down and talk to another fan of the books. And so that's really where things started. Our relationship started was just as two mutual fans of the series talking about it, talking about an adaptation potentially. And then whenever we got the development or got into the development process, he officially brought me on board. And so I was either his first or second hire, which is really, really cool. Just to have that and to know that I've been involved since the very beginning is really special, just to me personally.
That's amazing. So
that's the story up until that point. Yeah.
It's literally since the release of The Lord of the Rings, you've been plotting. This will happen one day. So
Yes.
I am going to on a faith call, move to LA and just stay in these circles and know it's going to happen. You have the foretelling, I think would be a good fair way to put it.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that my reading of Moiraine so early on in my life really inspired me to have the confidence to pick a course and then to stay on it without wavering. It was a conviction in my heart and soul.
Welcome back, everybody, after some minor technical difficulties. Sorry that occasionally happens with these things. Sarah, I would really love it if you could walk us through your day-to-day and basically the aspects of your job that, you wake up in the morning and get hacking away at.
Sure. That's great. I basically, from the writer's room perspective, or actually even more than that, for the whole production, my job basically is to be a support. I support everybody with information, and that information is all from the books. It's all canon. Whenever I'm talking about it, if I don't have a book directly in front of me or with me, it is referenced, or basically I follow up our conversations with like, hey, this is what we talked about. Here are all of the references to back up everything that I just said to you, just because it's really important to me. And this is a good opportunity just to say it, is that it's very important to me that I provide correct and accurate information that comes from the books that is supported strictly with references. I don't have any creative say in the show. I leave that up to the writers and Rafe and the heads of department. So that's them. My job is just to support, and then obviously I'm a big cheerleader of every other aspect of the show. So I think that that's always a question. I get that online a lot. Make sure that they get this, or make sure they do that, and that's not really what I do. I provide what is needed, what is asked for, and it's always backed up with Robert Jordan's words. So it's unique. Each person that does this type of job as a consultant, or even taking it a step further as a researcher, each person defines that job a little bit differently whenever they're in it, for all of production, for various different jobs. And so this is just how my role has been defined.
So would you say it's fair to say you're the objective chronicler for the show? You basically go to the text and you try to provide cited, like we all learned to do in high school, materials of like, here's what it says verbatim, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that, and I would also like to say that that's something that I put on myself. I have a really high standard of making sure that if I say something, it's not derived from some deep-seated personal desire or wish for, to see something happen in a certain way. No, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that even if something is ambiguous, that I cover various different viewpoints. So if it's not within the books, for example, I'll provide various different viewpoints of, different schools of thought, and then provide the resource and the text as to why that might be, and then be like, here, you decide, that type of thing.
Have the various unreliable narrators provided any difficulties yet? Like, I know we have Matt's occasionally seeing things through very matte-heavy lenses. Has that been an issue at all, or have you had to go, okay, 3 different people saw something 3 different ways. We have to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's one of those things where when you come up against things, like I'm in the lucky position of not having to dig deep into, to that. I just provide what's there and then let everybody else sort of run with it.
Okay. So you just provide the conflicting accounts and go figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, there are times where I am brought in to say, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And I will not budge. I'm like, they're like, yeah, but what do you think? And I'm like, oh, well, this is what it says. And so, that's, again, very, very important for me to convey that I am so unmovable when it comes to, adding that little extra here or there, just because it's very important to me that the account is as true to canon as possible from my perspective. So what I provide is what I love from the books, if that makes any sense.
I think a lot of people love hearing that. We want to know that there's a mega nerd, someone who's read them again and again and again, providing that. Do you have an exact count of how many times you've read the series?
No, I don't. I started reading in 1996, I think, and I never stopped reading. I've never stopped reading, which is really crazy to say out loud. But
crazy in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah, of course. But I would say in the last 18 months, I've reread the first half of the series, probably 8 to 10 times. And that's just because I want to be as into those books as possible, not because that's any, tea on anything that's happening. It's just so that I can be as solid as I can be for my own job. Mm-hmm. And I've not read the later books in quite some time. Knife of Dreams is one of my favorite books, and it's been about at that 1.5 year mark since I've gotten to dive into those books, which breaks my heart. Truly, I am a lover of the slog. I hate that word. I want to abolish it. And so, I do miss the reading of the later texts for sure.
So you reread so incessantly, not getting to a specific book in 18 months drives you nuts.
It does. And I mean, I'm reading the actual books, and I'm one of those that can't fall asleep without listening to something. And so the Wheel of Time is always in my head. I am falling asleep listening to the Wheel of Time. I'm cooking dinner listening to the Wheel of Time. I'm working listening to the Wheel of Time. And so it's just, constantly feeding through my brain, even when it's, I'm knocked out and fully asleep. It's still being fed into
like one of those
my
quit
brain.
Smoking tapes from the 90s. Yeah, it's just going
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The subliminal messages. Yeah. So yeah, that's the level of intensity. And even when I wasn't doing this job, I was still listening to the Wheel of Time constantly. So
I get asked all the time, how do I read as much as you do? And my answer is make it your full-time job. And you've done that specifically for the Wheel of Time. So it just makes sense that this is your full-time job. So you're doing it to that level.
Yep, absolutely.
And you were doing it before because you're a mega fan.
Yep, because of that intense desire to live within the world. So
transitioning into a next topic here I wanted to touch on. We've seen a lot of engagement from the show. I mean, you guys this early on in production have given us so much. And we've also had things leak. Just today, a Moraine photo came out, so we got to see our first look at Rosamund as Moraine. From your perspective, like in the show, how is it like that when you see something that wasn't an asset you were quite ready to let go is suddenly in the fans' hands?
That's interesting that you call it an asset, because I would consider it as such too. And without getting too into things, from my personal perspective, I don't know, like it feels to me like it's art, right? What is happening within, the production of the show, every little bit and piece, that's all art. And so whenever it gets released, it's almost like something being released without the artist's permission, and then released and then shared and then shared. We are very, very conscientious of the artists within the Wheel of Time community, and several of them are very outspoken about, please, like, share my work, but make sure you credit me, which is understandable. And so whenever things get leaked, from my perspective, that's just what it feels like, or it looks like to me, is that it's just like art being circulated without consent or without accreditation, different things like that. So it's not my favorite thing, but it's also something that does happen, and so it's dealt with.
Now, okay, people wouldn't forgive me if we didn't just dive into a little bit of your own personal fandom with Wheel of Time, your opinions on some hot takes. Are you willing to provide those?
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Is Egwene Talviren?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just because of the events of the book, you feel like this person, no question, she's got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, the events of the book, and then just, for me, I don't think that she was Ta'Veren at the start of the series at all. I think that as the pattern sort of called for different things, not naturally. That's a whole other question, by the way. Naturally, or if it's okay, anyway. But in terms of Egwene, I think that, especially in the events of the White Tower, the pattern demanded that, things swirl around her for a time, and that her actions were helped along by the pattern, and some of the things that she did or didn't do were also affected so that's kind of my feeling on that. But I for sure feel like she is a Ta'Veren. Absolutely.
So I like what you said there about the natural versus unnatural for whether or not she becomes Talviren. Do you think that's the creator's way of affecting the pattern, is just selecting Talviren?
I don't know how much the creator actually comes into play whenever, in relation to the pattern. I think that personally, I think that he created it. Obviously, we know certain things, but I think that as involved in the pattern as the Dark One is, then we have the antithesis of that, which is the creator, and he's very, hands off in a way, but he created something that functions as his hand almost, which is the pattern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
And which is the pattern in Ta'Veren and things like that. So that's how I personally view it. I don't know if anyone else does, but that's where I'm at with things.
Well, Robert Jordan specifically wrote this stuff, it feels like, to cause as much speculation and debate as possible. It feels like he just intentionally left things as vague as he could at times so that these conversations will happen until the world ends.
He was a master at that, leaving things left unsaid so that you as the reader can make your own conclusions, draw your own conclusions, and sort of tell your own tale in a way, or exist within your own reality, because each person's experience of the Wheel of Time is different. And that's, I don't think, totally usual. And so, I mean, everybody's experience reading is different, but the Wheel of Time is unique, I believe, because of, that fact exactly.
His writing style specifically was just more generalized in a way where it encourages that, where there are authors who, there's nothing wrong with it, but they write in such a specific manner, you have to, like, Tolkien is a great example of someone who, here is Middle Earth. Yes, there's some things that are left vague, but he literally wrote his Bible to go, here is everything you need to know. And I think Jordan would never have wanted to write that. He wouldn't want that out there.
I don't think so either. I think that he was really inspired by, and I don't know if it was intentional. That's something that I would like to know, if that style was developed or if it was just there from the get-go, or if it was almost inspired by the level of speculation that was being created by the things that were left unsaid early on. So that's a question that only a few people would be able to answer. But yeah, I think it's a really fantastic way of getting your readers invested and involved.
Okay. So next question, let's just go ahead and transition on here to another hot take where everyone seems to have a different answer. Who is not your favorite, but you think is the best villain in the Wheel of Time? Maybe not the one you got the most joy reading, but the one you think is the absolute best antagonist that Robert Jordan wrote into his story.
I think that probably Padan Fane. And I say that because, and I'm in the camp of a lot of readers where it was not my favorite way of, how his story wrapped up.
Yeah.
But what I liked about him was that he is affected by the shadow, but he's more so just like embodies the evil of man. And I don't know, because a lot of the people who are evil within the series are evil in ways of like greed and power. They're not all sadistic. And I think that with Padan Fane, he's so flawed. And I believe that, just through his experience, he is this very human, very real, very raw version of a bad guy that we don't get with any of the male Forsaken or any of the female Forsaken. And so, yeah, he's one that's really, really just awful.
I've always reading Padan Fane's pages that there's always this reframing Wheel of Time. Every character's head you jump in, it feels like you're experiencing the world a different way. With Padan Fane, it just feels so jarring because it's this whole left turn where suddenly you're in this person's mind, and you're not in it much throughout the series, but every time you do go in it, it almost feels dangerous. It just feels like foul is the best way I think to put it.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It's uncomfortable. And yeah, there's this scene in book 2 where he is just, he's got all of the people from a village whenever, he's running with the dagger. And there's just this moment of just pure evil. It has nothing to do with the Dark One or the Shadow. It's just his own personal choices. And for those of you that know what I'm talking about, it's just a really upsetting scene because how the chapter closes is, with people screaming. And he's a very disturbing head to be in whenever you're reading, for sure. So yeah, Fane is my answer.
Flipping over to a happier note, do you have a favorite romance in the Wheel of Time?
I would say that Ruark, Amos, and Leon would be my favorite romance relationship because of the level of just mutual love and respect that they all seem to have for one another. I would say Amos and Leon, just you have this very brief touch of their relationship, and it's just in a line, which is when they're making eye contact with each other. And Robert Jordan says something about how you can see that the level of love that they have for each other is equal, if not surpassed, by the love that they have for Ruark. And that can be interpreted in so many different ways. But I interpret it as just a deep love for one another and their general marriage with each other, all three of them. And so we don't get a lot of it, but just the level of and the longevity of that relationship is something that I love and respect quite a bit.
If I had to pull you into the wetlands with the main party, the main characters, do you have a favorite romance there?
Yes, I do, and it might be a little controversial, But Perrin and Fail now.
Okay.
Fail is not my favorite character, and that's again I think a whole other conversation.
Right.
But how Perrin chooses to love her and how he then just naturally loves her was something that I craved in my own personal life. Was somebody that would love me in the way that Perrin loved Fail. And so that relationship is one that I used as a blueprint almost, not the relationship, I should say how he loved her, of what I would potentially look for in a mate. So heavily impactful on my own personal life.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. So going full on spoilers, if you don't mind, into the series, last pages. How did Rand write the pipe in your interpretation? What was the lighting of the pipe? Sorry if you've been asked this a million billion times.
No, I haven't actually ever been asked that question. And it's one of those things, again, that I believe that Robert Jordan had that scene written for a very, very long time. I think he did it intentionally to drive us all crazy. Oh. And I think that, whatever happened to Rand in the Pit of Doom potentially changed him in a way that he's able just to access this level of power that that we don't quite understand or haven't had the opportunity to understand. At least I've not found any clues in my reads of what that could be, except that, he was fighting in Teleran Riyadh, and, then he's got this soul transmigration thing happening. And so I don't know. I wonder if it's something that has to do with Teleran Riyadh and somehow that settled into his bones. Like, I could go on and on about like my crazy loony theories about this. Yeah. And so, like, I wonder if he can use aspects of his connection with the world of dreams in the waking world. Who knows? So that's kind of my crazy thought process behind it, is he had all this stuff going on with the literal powers that drive the universe. And so, maybe something of the world of dreams and the power of the world of dreams settled in on him. So
I've referred to it in my head as anti-Lovecraftian, because I think it's supposed to be beyond our interpretation. It's supposed to be beyond our understanding, but it's so holy, it's so good, it's so on that level. So Lovecraft is dark, terrible, you're insane. I think it's the anti that. It's supposed to be this so ascended that we're not supposed to know as the readers. Just enjoy it.
We couldn't possibly understand. Yeah. Right. I think that that's an excellent POV on that. So yeah, that one drove me crazy. It still does, it keeps me up at night sometimes.
So among all these rereads, what's the character you think you've changed your perspective on the most?
Nynaeve.
Okay, fast answer, Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your first impression versus your current?
My first impression was that she was a killjoy and somebody that didn't allow for people to make their own choices, and that knew better for everybody else. And now, as I've grown and matured and become a mother myself, even though she's not actively a mother to these characters, what she does in giving up the only thing that she ever knew, and being a wisdom to chase after the people of her village and then to protect them, speaks so highly of just her character and her love for the people in her village, specifically the four. And then just, she's definitely she gets met with resistance. And, you know, when you're trying to care for someone and they push you away, frustration definitely comes in. And, you know, the fact that this woman gives up being a wisdom and then literally steps into the belly of her beast, which is the White Tower, and, you know, her continued efforts, I have so much respect for that. Before, she just drove me crazy, and I was like, ugh, you know, I liked reading her, but I just felt like she was unnecessarily mean or snippy. And I don't feel that way anymore, basically.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I wanted to go ahead and transition here into a little bit of a quiz. You know, you're the Wheel of Time chronicler. Let's see if you can
Okay.
hold up to some quiz here. Don't worry,
Okay.
nothing too crazy.
Okay.
So chronologically in the book timeline, meaning from the earliest year we actually land in the book, not in the publication date, what is
Okay.
the first instance of foretelling we witness as readers?
That would be Gitara foretelling the birth of the dragon.
Okay, the trick answer is you got the right one. The trick answer would be Elida. Oh, good job.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
what is Tom's nephew's name?
Owen.
And what strange twist to the way Nynaeve heals shocks the other Aes Sedai who first witness it?
It's that she uses all 5 of the threads of the one power, or yeah, all 5 powers, rather than, I think, water and earth or spirit or something like that. I can't remember, but I do remember that it was that she used all 5. That was shocking.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
does. She uses all 5, and she's kind of zoned out half the time when she does
Yeah,
it.
it's really, really epic, actually.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, is when she heals Madness while not really thinking about it that much.
That is, yeah, it's such an emotional moment for me too. Just the concept of being able to heal mental illness. Yeah, that's really special. I love how that was done.
Got it. Well, it's great to see your opinions, your thoughts, your takes, to hear that you're just going through these books so much. I'm sure the fans love hearing it as well. And thank you so much for being willing to come on the channel today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Technical difficulties aside, this was really, really fantastic and freeing, just to be able to express opinions. That's really, really fun and nice in general, but just also being able to talk with other fans, other people that know and love the series just as much as I do. So thank you for that opportunity. This was really, really great fun, and I hope to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Where can people find you online? You're on Twitter at Sarah Nakamura, correct? Instagram as well?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah E. Nakamura. So it's Sarah and then E for Elizabeth Nakamura.
It'll be
And it's it's both Twitter and Instagram is where I am, but I'm highly active on Twitter.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for swinging by, and I appreciate it again. And have a great day, everyone. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit that Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.